So the Vancouver Film Fest is still going on, and I'm still working on the rest of that Walking Dead review in between movies. But here's another quick update so you know what I think of the movies. First was Camille Claudel 1915. Juliette Binoche is amazing as usual, and everything felt incredibly and disturbingly real. It's definitely very slow paced, but I kinda liked it. The film does stretch on for a bit, but I can understand its point in doing so. They really want you to feel as uncomfortable as the main character in this one. You kind of suffer with her in a way. When the story moved away from Camille and then focused on Paul, I found it really difficult to care about what was happening. The slow and dreary tone stayed the same as it was before, but it no longer really had a purpose. Overall, I really enjoyed it, but I'll probably never see it again. There were a few preferences that kept it from being recommendable for me, so I'll give it a 6. Next was Ain't Them Bodies Saints, starring Casey Affleck. Everything was generally well done, but it seriously felt as if at least 30 minutes was missing from the movie. With that kind of setup, they definitely could have done more with it. Everything was well done, but I was so underwhelmed by the end of it. Everything that I watched was definitely good, but nothing stood out as great. They definitely could have spent more time developing the story and characters. And it's not as if anything was really difficult to understand, but I kind of felt as if I hardly knew these people, and that maybe if I did, I might care a bit more about what's going on. I'm giving this one a 6. Next was Borgman. I definitely appreciate that it tried to be different, and it definitely had a sense of humor for a while, but once the initial shock of, oh, isn't this so quirky was gone, it proved to be really repetitive, and no amount of quirkiness was really unexpected at that point. Yep, they just killed a person, again. Didn't see that one coming. I'd give this one a 5 out of 10. Next I saw Blue is the Warmest Color, the controversial lesbian love story that won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. It was kind of hard to judge this movie. There's obviously a lot of really impressive talent involved. It's well shot and everything seems super real and natural. I love it when directors have actors overlap the ends of each other's sentences to make the conversation seem more natural, as opposed to the all too common method of just waiting for the other person to finish their lines. And it was cool how you could even hear some of the conversations in the background sync up with the extras' lips. Overall, it was filmed superbly. The characters were extremely real and relatable, and I was always able to think of them as the characters rather than the actors themselves. It does kind of bug me how often characters eat spaghetti in this movie. Like seriously, they ate spaghetti like fucking 4 times. And I kind of feel as if the gratuitous sex scenes could have been cut down a little. I mean, I'm all for them and it did help me understand the bond between the characters, but after a few minutes I was seriously starting to understand why the actors came out and said that they felt like prostitutes while filming it. It kind of crossed the line between making a movie and pretending to make a movie so that you can watch 2 girls have sex on camera. The sex was convincing though. I mean, you definitely see vag to mouth contact. And to set things straight, I think it would have been excessive regardless of their gender. And holy shit, if it was 2 dudes, this movie never would have even been released. One thing that really bothered me was the way that they filmed the club scenes. And this is something that most movies are guilty of. But they're in an obviously loud bar and the actors are talking as loud as they were outside. When you're filming a bar scene, it makes sense to add music in post-production. Because if you didn't, then as soon as you made a cut in your editing, the song would cut as well and it would cease to be seamless. So when they're filming those scenes and delivering those lines, there's nothing that they really have to shout over. But then they add in the loud music. And the dialogue stays loud enough to hear, but they're fucking whispering it. It takes all the realism away from me. The music in the background is obviously supposed to seem loud because of the post-production effects, but the characters are never speaking as though there's something loud in the room that they're talking over. The Social Network did the club scenes perfectly, and sadly most movies do not. I lacked a bit of empathy towards the main character at the end, and I'm not sure if I was supposed to or not. Overall, the movie has a lot of great things going for it, and even though I thought that some things don't work and I do have some criticisms about it, it is definitely recommendable, and I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Next was You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. This might be the single worst movie I've ever seen at Vancouver International Film Fest. I don't know how this movie wound up in my watch list, but I did not expect, even if I were to just pick a random fucking movie from this film fest and watch it, that I could see something so fucking bad and painful here. It's filmed in a kind of 1960s, 1970s style, but it's not really a parody. In fact, it seems as though it was only filmed that way so you couldn't call it out on how fucking stupid it was. So at the beginning of the movie, everybody gets a phone call because somebody that they knew died, and they all have to meet at the same location so they can be present for his will reading. When they read his will, a video shows up and it's him, and he's like, "You all at one time performed in my play Eurydice, so now I'm going to play a video of other people performing some of the parts from Eurydice, and then you can all just sit in your chairs and talk along with it for no fucking reason." And that's the whole fucking movie. So I'm watching a 1960s/70s style movie about actors who are playing themselves but have no fleshed out character whatsoever, playing other characters from a play that isn't actually being performed, and every once in a while you're gonna make a really shitty effect to make it seem as though the characters are supposed to be in the correct setting of the fucking play, but the play is the most irrelevant irrelevant fucking thing I've ever even heard. Maybe if this movie was a showcase of fantastic performances, then it would be worth this convoluted and fucking retarded excuse. But it wasn't. It was just fucking people reading. Each superfluous layer of bullshit in this movie makes it less realistic. How am I supposed to give a shit about anything? This was a terrible idea, and I'm giving this one a 4 out of 10. Next was Big Bad Wolves. It was definitely entertaining. Most of the gore kind of really sucked. It had a really good sense of humor, but it didn't really feel real and everything was kind of retarded convenient. It was definitely fun to watch though. I would have to give this one a 6 out of 10. Next is Money for Nothing Inside the Federal Reserve. This documentary was well-paced, well-informed, and it definitely had some interviews of people that knew their shit. I definitely recommend this to anybody that doesn't really know much about the Federal Reserve. It's like taking a course in economics. But if there's one thing that kind of weighs this movie down, is that it doesn't really separate itself from every single other documentary exactly like this. It's all useful information, but there's been quite a few other documentaries that have come out and already said it. I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. Next we saw Wadjda, or as I like to call it, Wadjda. I definitely did not experience as much pain or hate myself as much as watching You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. But in terms of filmmaking, I'd say it's just as bad. Every single one of the actors sucked. Nothing felt real. But it's on the right side of a political issue, so you have to like it, right? The main character is a little girl in Saudi Arabia who wants a bike. But everyone around her is like, no, bikes are not for girls. You're not allowed because we don't like women in this country. But she wants to save up money to buy one, and the one bike is too expensive. But gee willikers, it turns out that there's a fucking Quran recital competition that would win just enough money to fulfill the main character's goals. I wonder if they're gonna have a bike at the end of the movie. Jesus fucking Christ, this movie is so fucking poorly written and acted and directed. I get it, it's your first movie and you're the first ever female director from Saudi Arabia to ever make a movie. Does that mean that you were good at it? No. So let's all stop giving out fake praise for the sake of being politically correct. You made a really bad movie. And oh my god, when she was riding her bike towards the highway at the end of the movie, it was set up so well to have her get run over as soon as the uplifting music was playing. If that had actually happened, then that would have made up for the rest of the movie. But it didn't. 4 out of 10. The last one I saw was Like Father, Like Son, winner of the Grand Jury Prize at Cannes. I really liked this movie overall, and I thought that it had a great premise to start out with. The soundtrack wasn't amazing, but it actually had a purpose in the way that it sounded. Sometimes it felt a little black and white in the way that the movie presented things, but overall it was pretty interesting and well performed. I'd give this one a 7 out of 10. So I know some of you were like, Adam, how come all your ratings for movies are like 6 out of 10? How come I don't see any extreme ratings like 1 out of 10 or 10 out of 10? And that's exactly why, is because those ratings are fucking extreme. I highly, highly doubt that I could show up at a film festival and pick movies that I want to watch and have one of them turn out to be a 3 out of 10. I was shocked that I watched what I would consider to be 4 out of 10s, more than one of them at this film festival. That was shocking. The number also is supposed to represent the actual quality of the movie. Yes, my opinion does influence what the quality of the movie would be to me, but I'm trying to make it so that it's not just opinion. There are plenty of 6 out of 10 movies, aka above average movies, that I would consider to be movies that I fucking hate. There was even a movie that I rated 7 out of 10 called Rubber that I hated. I didn't like it, but it's 7 out of 10 because I would recommend it to people because it's more than above average. It was self-aware. The characters that were supposed to represent the audience fell asleep in the movie. It knew it was boring and it knew it was dumb and it was trying to be different, but at least it was self-aware about it. Something that's all the way down to 1 is Megan is Missing. That's a movie that failed on every single level, had no redeemable qualities, and wasn't self-aware about it at all. To suggest that I could see a movie at the film festival and have it be even close to as bad as that movie was, it would be unreasonable for me to say that. I would be an unreasonable person to give a movie a 1 out of 10 just because I didn't like it. That's an unreasonable thing to do, and I don't care how many other film reviewers on YouTube or otherwise have just tossed out 1 out of 10 ratings like that. It's unreasonable. It's unreasonable. The reason why typically most of the movies that I review tend to be 4 and above is because the chances of me seeking out a movie and being interested in it and seeing it for whatever reason, the chances of me seeing something like that and having it turn out to be as bad as like Sharknado, Birdemic, or Megan is Missing, how fucking bad of a movie watcher would I have to be that I couldn't foresee that? Why would I want to see something like that in theaters? After Earth was intentional. That was funny. I would give that a 3 out of 10. That was really funny. But otherwise, I mean, how could I make that mistake? I couldn't make that mistake. If I'm seeing a movie that's like 3 out of 10 or lower, it's because I know it's going to be that. There's no way that you could confuse a 3 out of 10 or lower movie for something that would be an actual quality film. I don't think that's possible. You would have to do a really fucking good job with the trailer. You would have to have the most deceptive trailer of all time. I would say that I probably definitely watch a lot more movies on the higher points of my scale than I do on the lower points of my scale, and that's because I seek out movies that I think I'm going to enjoy. So if this was the 2012 Vancouver International Film Fest, I would be talking about 1 or 2 10s on my list. Unfortunately, 2013 is kind of a shit year for movies, so the highest film that I've seen on the film fest would be like Tom of the Farm, and I'd probably put that as an 8. Chances are, if it's 7 out of 10, I think that it has some merit, and it's better than just above average. This channel is supposed to show you movies that are better than above average, because to watch above average movies, you don't need a film reviewer. All you need to do is follow the polls. All you need to do is see the most popular movies out. You don't have to do anything. Why would you be here if all you want to do is watch above average movies? A 10 out of 10 movie is a movie where basically everything serves its purpose. I don't know if I have any 10 out of 10 movies that I wouldn't consider to be intelligent, so intelligence would be a factor. It is basically a perfect movie, and if there are any flaws, they're extremely minor and don't really detract from it. 9 out of 10 movies would be movies that would be perfect had there not be some minor detractions or significant detractions. Of course, not that many. 8 out of 10 would just be a great movie. It could be great in some regards, but feels like it's missing something. Really, the top end of the scale can get to be really subjective, because the best movies for individuals are usually the ones that they can relate to the most. Movies can hit people in little places in their heart, you know? Do you get it? I don't know. Is this becoming more confusing or less confusing? I think that my rating system is pretty consistent, I would say. There have been a few slip-ups, like Spider-Man is rated a bit too high, and Dark Knight Rises is rated a bit too high. But that's why now, when I rate a movie, like when I was talking about Tom of the Farm, and when I was talking about, I think I also said this with Past, I didn't just give a number. I said 7 or 8 out of 10, because sometimes I have to let things simmer, and I want to watch Tom at the Farm again before I really decide whether or not it's 7 or 8, but I highly doubt that watching it a second time would mean that it's anything other than a 7 or 8 out of 10. 6 out of 10 would be most of my ratings, not because that's what most movies are, but because that's what most movies are that I would bother to watch in the first place. I really have no interest in seeking out films that I think will be worse than that. Maybe if I'm starting to make a lot of money and I can, blow more money on movie tickets, then I can just fucking see everything and it won't matter. But for now, I'm trying to watch movies that I think that I'll like, at least, or maybe ones that my friends drag me to. 6 out of 10 does not mean that I love a movie. It does not mean that I hate a movie. It could be either or I could feel indifferent to it. 6 out of 10 reflects the quality of the film, not my emotional response to it. It's what I think best represents the movie, not what I think best represents my feelings towards the movie. If you want to know how I felt about the movie, if you want to know whether or not I enjoyed myself or hated myself watching it, then listen to the words that I say before I give the number. Why would I say the words if all I want you to hear is the number? I highly doubt I'm ever going to make an explanation video like this ever again, so if you see somebody in the comments section being like, man, how come you talk about how much you hate it and then only rate it a 6 out of 10, it's because the number doesn't reflect how much I hate it. The number reflects what I think the quality of the actual movie is. Wolf Children had some pretty good animation, and I can see it appealing to the audience that it was intended for. I hated it. I gave it a 6 out of 10. I didn't like it. It wasn't for me. But just because something isn't for me doesn't mean that I think that the actual filmmaking is a 1 out of 10. 1 out of 10 is Megan is Missing. For me to... I could not imagine an actual 1 out of 10 movie being in theaters right now. I could pick a random movie in theaters, and chances are it would be anywhere between 4 to 6 out of 10. To say that every movie that you absolutely hate is a 1 out of 10 is to be an unreasonable person. To dish out 10s for the new movie that you love all the time is to be an unreasonable person. And I'm trying to provide reasonable opinions, even if you don't agree with them all the time, even if I do slip up and rate some things a bit higher or a bit lower than I probably should. Nobody's perfect, and not that many movies are perfect. So don't dish out your 1s and 10s like they're fucking candy. That's my explanation.